Greetings, nerds and virgins. Welcome to On the Moneyliner podcast by MMA Play 365. I'm your host, Usman, and we're here for UFC 268. We've got Kamaru Usman versus Colby Covington 2, the rematch, the grudge match, and that's exactly where we're starting for the first breakdown, the UFC Welterweight Championship fight. Like I've already said, this is a rematch. It was a phenomenal fight last time, a lot of volume between two wrestlers, and I think it's safe to say that this time around, we're probably safe to say that there's not going to be too much wrestling. I think it's going to be a striking affair. Like I said, last time the wrestling cancelled each other out just because both Usman and Covington are just really, really strong wrestlers. If Usman did take Covington down, I think Covington would be able to get back up to his feet and vice versa. But ultimately, I think that if any started shooting takedowns, they're just going to have difficulty because their opponent is such a good wrestler as well. Like I said, I think the fight's going to be won and lost on the feet. I think the biggest talking point regarding this fight and this rematch is the improvements that Kamaru Usman has made on the feet. Striking, he's made a massive amount of improvement. He's looking like he's now sitting down on his punches. He's got knockout power, whereas before, especially in that Covington fight, he was very volume heavy. So the striking's improved, but I do feel that the volume side of Usman's striking is now taking a bit of a hit because of the developments he's made, and I'll explain what I mean. So because he's sitting down on punches, he's making reads much better, and because he's making reads, he's becoming a little more patient, looking for that one shot to really unload on. That knockout of Masvidal was beautiful, but you look at the volume perspective, you know, he didn't land too much volume over those 2 rounds before that knockout happened, whereas in that last fight against Colby Covington, he landed north of 170 strikes. So that for me is a big difference, and I think that's actually going to play a factor if Usman does come into this fight looking to use this new style of striking. I think that Colby Covington's going to be able to pull away with the volume if Kamaru Usman is just being more patient, sitting back a little bit, making reads. And obviously there's always that chance that Usman lands that one hard shot that knocks Colby Covington out. If he's knocking Gilbert Burns out, if he's knocking Jorge Masvidal out, I'm sure he'll be able to knock Covington out as well. But if that knockout doesn't come, then Colby's just going to run away with this volume. I think that anybody that's writing Colby Covington off, I think you should go back and watch that first fight between the two fighters, because I was super impressed with the striking of Covington. I had Covington 3 rounds up to 1 going into round 5. There is an argument for 2 and 2 going into round 5, but I had Colby up 3 rounds to 1. I thought his striking looked really good. He was stunning Usman. I'm not saying he was having him wobbled or he didn't drop him or anything, but he's definitely landing hard shots on Usman. And like I said, I think those 3 rounds out of the 4 Colby Covington took going into that 5th round, you can't count Colby Covington out of this fight. Sure, Usman's improved in regards to his striking. I think his volume takes a little bit of a hit because of that. That means that Colby Covington will just put on a volume-based affair. I think he does pull away with the volume down the stretch. And I'm actually picking the underdog on a betting line that is absolutely crazy. I'm picking Colby Covington to become the new UFC welterweight champion. And in the next fight, we've got another title fight. We've got Rose Cut. Restart. And in the next fight, in the co-main event for the UFC Strawweight Championship, we've got another rematch. We've got Rose Namajunas versus Zhang Weili. A fight that last time was just crazy. It ended in under 90 seconds with Rose Namajunas landing that head kick that knocked Weili Zhang out. Everybody, I think, was surprised and shocked. Not that Rose Namajunas won, even though she was quite a heavy underdog in that fight, but just shocked with the way the fight ended. It was a low percentage outcome. I don't think that happens again. I think this is a fight that we do see play out much longer, maybe into the championship rounds as well. I think this fight is going to be back and forth, but just how I analysed the fight last time, I think Rose Namajunas needs to stay on the outside, use kicks, fire in, really manage a range. When she's in to boxing range, when she slides into range, just land a couple of shots and slide right back out again, because where Weili Zhang is going to be really good here is inside of that boxing range. She's going to be aggressive, she's going to want to land combinations, and she's also been training with Henry Cejudo at Fight Ready as well, so I think she's going to look for more of a wrestling approach in this fight. The 2 things that Fight Ready will improve is technical striking and wrestling, so I think that Weili Zhang has gone over to Fight Ready for a purpose here. I think she's going to tighten that striking up. I don't think she's going to want to get hit by that head kick again. So just when she's out at range, at distance, just make sure she's covering up and that she doesn't make any silly mistakes. And before their last fight, I actually picked Rose Namajunas to win. I believe she was the dog for the week here at MMA Play 365 as well. This time I'm actually flipping my pick back over to Weili Zhang. I think the move and the transition over to fight ready is going to pay dividends here. I think she's going to be much more prepared than what she was last time. And last time, like I say, it was a low percentage outcome. That head kick in under 90 seconds, the chances of that happen again is really, really small. I think if this does go down the stretch, if we do see championship rounds, I think it is going to be a back and forth fight. I think the betting lines is much more accurate this time around, being a near pick'em than what it was last time, with Weili Zhang being a -200 favourite. So I definitely think the betting lines are right here. But I do think that the improvements in regards to the striking and the work that Weili Zhang's been putting in with Henry Cejudo could play a part in a modified game plan here for Weili Zhang, a game plan that she wouldn't have had last time out. So I am picking Weili Zhang to become the new UFC strawweight champion. And in the next fight, we've got an absolute barn burner. We've got Justin Gaethje versus Michael Chandler, and this fight has got fireworks all over it. Michael Chandler, obviously coming off that loss last time out, looking to fire in against Gaethje, get back into the win column. And listen, Michael Chandler was maybe a couple of seconds away from becoming the UFC lightweight champion. He had Charles Oliveira in all kinds of trouble at the end of that first round. He hurt him badly, but he decided to stay in guard, opposed to, just finishing the fight, making sure that he gets back up to his feet and tries to put Charles Oliveira down again, which if he had have done that, I do believe he would have become the new UFC lightweight champion, but it didn't pan out like that. I think he made a little bit of a mistake. And in this fight, I actually think he's got a much tougher fight ahead of him than what he did against Charles Oliveira, even though Oliveira is the UFC lightweight champion. Justin Gaethje, I think, is going to be a stylistic nightmare for somebody like Michael Chandler. Gaethje comes with pressure, he's got cardio, he's durable, and I'm not saying he's going to be able to eat one of Chandler's clean bombs, but if Chandler does land one of the clean bombs, there's definitely more chance of someone like Gaethje being able to withstand that power than a lot of the other fighters in the division. But the problem that Mike Chandler's got is he comes out really fast, he starts really fast, he comes out really hard like a bull, and he struggles to keep that cardio. We saw in that title fight against Charles Oliveira that in that second round, he definitely felt the gas tank, should I say, than what he did in that first round. Obviously the first round he came in fresh, but he was definitely struggling from a gas tank perspective. That's a problem that Chandler's got. He's got to tone it down a little bit here, but I feel that if he doesn't come out fast and hard in this fight, then Justin Gaethje is just going to pick away at him early, and then Chandler will probably come out fast and hard in the second round, really blow his load in that round into the third round, and again might have gas tank issues against a fighter like Gaethje that can notoriously go 5 hard rounds like we saw against Tony Ferguson. Like I said, I think it's a stylistic nightmare. Chandler's going to have his moments in this fight, whether he comes out hard. If he does, then he's going to have his moments in round 1. If he doesn't come out hard, then I think it'll be round 2 that he starts packing power in his punches. But whatever round that happens in, I think he's got a really small window of knocking Gaethje out, and that's a big ask for someone like Chandler to knock somebody like Gaethje out. I think Gaethje has got the wrestling definitely to make sure that Chandler's not taking him down and getting a load of top control. Gaethje's defensive wrestling's really good, his scrambling's really good. I think Chandler's going to struggle from a wrestling perspective. He'll be forced to stand and strike. That's where he's going to have his small window of opportunity for a knockout. But if it doesn't come, which I don't think it does, I think Gaethje takes over the fight, lands a ton of volume, maybe puts Chandler out late, but if it doesn't, I see Gaethje taking at least 2 out of the 3 rounds. I'm picking Justin Gaethje to win this fight. And then in the next fight, another potential barn burner, we've got Shane Burgos versus Billy Quarantillo. And from a bookie's betting line perspective, I think the betting line is absolutely accurate in this fight because it could have played a massive part in regards to recency bias here, because Shane Burgos obviously coming off that weird knockout against Edson Barboza, Billy Quarantillo coming off a phenomenal win as an underdog against Gabriel Benitez where he just battered him for 3 rounds. So there could have been a potential scenario here where recency bias kicked in, and it really hasn't at all. I think the betting line is correct. It's where it should be. And Shane Burgos, I think he's just the better fighter. I like Billy Quarantillo. I like the pressure that he tries to put on fighters. He's fun, he's entertaining to watch. But from Burgos' perspective, he only loses to the best fighters in the world. His only losses are to Edson Barboza, to Calvin Kattar, to Josh Emmett. The Calvin Kattar and Barboza fights were razor close until he was finished. The Josh Emmett fight was a razor close decision, but he ate the biggest shots from Josh Emmett, who is the hardest hitter in the division. So, in my opinion at least. So I feel that what happened to Burgos in regards to that weird knockout, I actually don't think it should be a worry for Burgos. Yes, it looked a bit strange, but he was clearly hit on the button in the right spot, and even his body tried to fight that, which just shows insane levels of durability. I think Burgos in this fight, he's going to put Billy Quarantillo on the back foot, and that's where he wins the fight, because Quarantillo does his best work moving forwards, putting the pressure on his opponents, really overwhelming them with volume and forward pressure. But Burgos will meet him in the middle if Quarantillo tries to do that. So much so that I feel Burgos, his forward pressure is going to be the pressure that actually takes prominence in this fight. I think he's going to be the one pushing Quarantillo back, who is nowhere near as efficient on the back foot as he is on the front foot. That's going to allow Burgos to get the boxing combinations going, to get his low kicks going. He digs to the body as well as to the head with his combinations as well, which again is something that I think is going to be problematic for Quarantillo, because Quarantillo does fade in fights, but if he's starting to be dug into the body, if his body work is on point, Burgos' body work's on point, then Quarantillo will start feeling that the longer the fight goes on. I just feel that, I say this quite often, but there is levels in MMA, and I think Burgos is a level above Quarantillo. I think Quarantillo's in a bit of a tough spot. I'm picking Shane Burgos to win this fight. And in the next fight, we've got the legend, we've got the veteran Frankie Edgar returning against Marlon Vera. And again, it's an interesting fight. I do think that Frankie Edgar's coming back a little bit too soon after that Sandhagen knockout. That was an unbelievable knockout that's actually a little bit tough to watch with how brutal it was. You know, Edgar was out cold, and he was out cold for quite a while as well. So I do feel that Edgar should have taken a little bit more time off, considering his age, considering the wars that he's been in, whereas I do feel he's coming back a little bit too soon. But with that being said, with the right game plan, I actually think that Frankie Edgar's got the tools to win this fight. He's definitely got to be mindful and careful that he doesn't get hit with something hard from Vera. But the other thing that Edgar's got to do is he's got to start this fight fast, because Vera is notoriously a slow starter. But if Edgar comes into this fight with a relentless wrestling heavy game plan, I think that he's going to be able to take Vera down. Sure, Vera could throw up submissions, triangles, armbars. He is tricky to deal with from a BJJ perspective, but I don't think that Frankie Edgar's going to get caught in an armbar or a triangle. He's too long in the tooth for that. He's too experienced. He's a veteran. And I do feel that Edgar could implement a similar type of game plan as what he had against Yair Rodriguez. Sure, Edgar was closer to his prime back when he fought Rodriguez, but his wrestling's not going to have left him. He's still going to be able to score takedowns. Top control, he's going to be able to ride Marlon Vera out, in my opinion, top side. On the feet is where it gets sketchy for Edgar. If he starts getting lit up a little bit, then he will have to start taking a backward step. Otherwise, he's going to run the risk of getting hurt and knocked out. But ultimately, like I said, Edgar's a veteran. He's going to have a solid game plan. He's going to know what he needs to do and where he doesn't need to be, especially after that Sandhagen knockout. Again, I think from a levels perspective, Edgar's veteran is a veteran, and where he's been in MMA and who he's fought, I just feel that it puts him a level above Marlon Vera. And I know Frankie Edgar's an underdog, but I feel that he's a good underdog. I feel, like I say, with the right game plan, he's going to be able to get takedowns, make this fight close, potentially steal at least 2 out of the 3 rounds. I'm actually picking Frankie Edgar to win this fight. And in the next fight, an interesting one, we've got Andreas Michailidis versus Alex Pereira. Now, some may recognise the name Alex Pereira. He's the one that everybody talks about, Israel Adesanya, when he was knocked out in kickboxing, badly knocked out. This is the guy, Alex Pereira. That's the guy that's knocked out the UFC middleweight champion. Alex Pereira is also a fighter, not only with a deadly kickboxing game, but a fighter that's been working very closely with now the new UFC light heavyweight champion, Glover Teixeira, now for a few years, preparing. And actually, just digressing a little bit, I think that a lot of Glover's success and his resurgence comes down to Alex Pereira as well, because I think that Glover's become a much better striker since he started training with Pereira. And on the flip side, you've got to assume that Pereira's wrestling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is at a level where he can be competitive in the UFC because of the fact that he's been training with Glover Teixeira now for quite a while. I think Michailidis is in a bit of a tough spot here because he's got to be able to get his wrestling game going. If he goes toe-to-toe with a kickboxer like Alex Pereira, he's going to get lit up and knocked out, which is actually what I think happens in this fight. Michailidis has got to get that wrestling going, but like I said, I don't think Pereira will have put himself in this position in the UFC. I don't think Glover Teixeira will have advised his friend and teammate to get to the UFC in this position if he couldn't defend takedowns, if he couldn't get back up to his feet, if he is taken down. I think this fight, if it plays out late, then I think Michailidis has a better chance of winning this fight, because that should allow him to start working his game plan a little bit, because I can't imagine this fight goes late if Pereira has everything his way. I think if Pereira has everything his way, then he's going to score the knockout early in this fight. I do think there's a small chance it could go late, but again, I think the fight's going to be over quite early. I think there's a big gap in skill in the kickboxing levels, how dangerous Pereira is on the feet, striking. I think that's going to show on the night. I'm picking Alex Pereira to win this fight. And in the next fight, a fighter that we haven't seen for a couple of years, raging Iaquinta versus Bobby Green. This should be a really fun fight. I imagine both fighters are going to be talking to each other inside the cage, having a bit of fun, and I think it's going to be entertaining to watch. But I do worry for Iaquinta. He's coming off 2 fights that haven't gone his way. Obviously the Dan Hooker fight, the fight before that against Cerrone as well, where he was the favourite to win in that Cerrone fight. But coming back after 2 years, fighting somebody like Bobby Green, I think he's in a bit of a difficult position, and I'm quite surprised he was more than happy to take this fight, because I think Iaquinta would have been more suited to take a fight against a fighter that might be in a similar position to him from a layoff perspective, or just a fighter that he matches better up with stylistically. I don't think he matches well up with Bobby Green stylistically. I think from a striking perspective, Iaquinta can put pressure on, but Bobby Green's so evasive. He's so unorthodox on the feet. He strikes from weird angles. He's got decent volume. He's got wrestling in his back pocket. That's another thing for Iaquinta. He is a good wrestler, but trying to relentlessly wrestle somebody like Bobby Green, it's just not going to play out well for you. I think Bobby Green's being the more active fighter. I think he's the fighter on better form, the fresher fighter, and just the fighter that's going to be better at this stage in his career than what Iaquinta is. I think Iaquinta will have some moments in this fight. He's always obviously got the puncher's chance as well, but I just don't feel that Iaquinta is going to be able to steal 2 rounds from Bobby Green. I think Bobby Green's volume will be too good. I think mixing in wrestling and getting in some clinch positions to slow things down if he needs to will be on point as well. I'm picking Bobby Green to win this fight. And in the next fight, we've got a fight that should have happened a couple of weeks ago. We've got Phil Hawes versus Chris Curtis. Now, this is the fight, if you remember, that Phil Hawes lost his opponent, Deron Winn, at the weigh-ins. Chris Curtis stepped in on less than 24 hours notice, weighed in perfectly fine. The UFC had matched this fight, but then Phil Hawes pulled out of the fight and said that he didn't want to fight Chris Curtis at that moment. I'm sure he had his reasons. What they are is unknown to me, but it's just a bit strange that he didn't accept that change of opponent in Chris Curtis, but now 2 weeks later, they're scheduled to fight. It's a bit odd. I feel that from Phil Hawes' perspective, he was probably better off fighting Chris Curtis on 24 hours notice, or less than 24 hours notice, than what he is giving Curtis a couple of weeks to get in better shape and get half a camp in. So it's a bit odd, but I actually like Chris Curtis in this fight. I don't think it's going to be an easy fight for him. Phil Hawes is going to be explosive striking, hard low kicks, hard punches, combinations, forward pressure. But Chris Curtis's background is boxing, and he's a very patient, calculated boxer. So I think it's going to be one of those fights where Phil Hawes looks really good early on. He's probably going to try and wrestle Chris Curtis. A lot of fighters do. He's probably going to be able to take him down as well. But Chris Curtis doesn't panic. He can defend takedowns, but if he is taken down, he can get back up to his feet as well. And I think that's what happens in this fight. Hawes is going to start this fight really well. I think he's going to land some hard shots on Curtis. I think he's going to mix in some takedowns as well. If those hard shots don't take Curtis out of there and knock him out, I think come the second round and third round, we'll start to see Curtis just slowly build his way into the fight. If Hawes is over wrestling in this fight, you're going to see the gas tank issues coming back, which appears to be the reason why Hawes has gas tank issues, because of the wrestling. So Hawes has got to be careful of that. Like I said, if he's over wrestling, I feel that Chris Curtis will slowly build into this fight. He's got a chance of stealing round 2. I think he's a more likely fighter to steal round 3 if it gets there as well. So again, I'm going to take an underdog shot. I'm picking Chris Curtis to win this fight. And in the next fight, another really intriguing fight. We've got Edmen Shahbazyan versus Nassourdine Imavov. Now this is a really good fight because we've got Imavov coming off a phenomenal win against Ian Heinisch. I actually bet Ian Heinisch in that fight and Imavov just looked absolutely phenomenal. So I've got no problems and no regrets with that. You know, Imavov did a good job. But Edmen Shahbazyan is a fighter that's had a very quick rise to the top of the division and is, you know, he was firing through some of the fighters that are currently at Imavov's level, aside from maybe Tavares. Tavares is a solid fighter still, but then as soon as he started hitting the fighters in the top 5 of the division, Derek Brunson, Jack Manson, that's where Edmen Shahbazyan clearly bitten off more than what he could chew. And now he's coming back down levels, fighting someone like Imavov, who's on his way up. So it's a perfect it's perfect matchmaking because we've got a fighter in Shahbazyan that's, you know, taking a bit of a backward step and a fighter that's on a surge with Imavov, and we're going to find out a lot about both fighters. Now Imavov's a specialist in regards to his striking, really good technical striker, doesn't look to load up on his punches, and as we saw in the Ian Heinisch fight, he can knock you out with an accumulation of volume opposed to having that raw power. But with Shahbazyan, I do feel there is still something with Shahbazyan. I still feel that he's a good athlete, he's a good fighter, he's got deceptive power, he's got wrestling in his back pocket, his jiu-jitsu is good as well. And I think if he stays at kickboxing range in this fight against Imavov, he's going to lose. I wouldn't say it's a whitewash, but I would favour Imavov in that sort of fight. But I do think that Shahbazyan is going to be able to close the distance, get his wrestling going. And like I said, he's got deceptive power as well. So if he does start tagging Imavov up with a couple of hard shots, Imavov might start to be a little hesitant. Like I said, I just feel that Shahbazyan's the fighter with the better experience, that's fought the better quality competition. And I still feel there's something with Shahbazyan. I'm not ready to write him off. I think that Imavov is probably going to meet his match in regards to where his level's at. I like Shahbazyan as the overall all-round MMA fighter here, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, as well as striking. So I am going to pick, and again, a little bit surprising, the underdog for me. I'm picking Edmen Shahbazyan to win this fight. And in the next fight, we've got Jordan Williams versus a fighter that I like a lot, Ian Garry. Ian Garry, the newcomer into the UFC. This is a fighter that from his first amateur fight in Cage Warriors, I said that this guy will be in the UFC. Obviously, there was a long road from being an amateur to turning pro and then putting a win streak together and then getting called up to the UFC. There's a lot of things that can happen in that stretch, but I called Ian Garry making his UFC debut back at his first amateur fight in Cage Warriors, and here he is. He's a fighter that I like a lot, so technical on the feet. He's really well-rounded everywhere. He doesn't have a ton of power in regards to that one-punch raw knockout power, but again, accumulation of volume. He's so smart in regards to his movement, stepping into range, coming back out of range, danger awareness. And like I said, when the fight hits the mat, his scrambling ability is good, his jiu-jitsu is good. Maybe the only side of his game that lacks a little bit is from his wrestling perspective, but offensively, that's going to hurt him. But offensively, wrestling isn't really where he wins and loses his fights. And if he is taken down, I believe his Brazilian jiu-jitsu, his scrambling ability is more than good enough to stand back up. And I think Jordan Williams has got a tough fight ahead of him here. I'm not going to write Jordan Williams off instantly and just say that he's going to get whitewashed here. But when you look at how Jordan Williams wins this fight, in a striking battle, I think that Ian Garry is the better technical striker, as fighter with the better cardio. With better cardio comes more volume. So I think Jordan Williams is going to struggle from a striking perspective unless he just blasts Garry out of there. But I'm yet to see Ian Garry really hurt. So to think that Jordan Williams comes in here and just knocks Garry out is something that I don't think is a very probable outcome. But does Jordan Williams wrestle? He can wrestle. If he does take Garry down, like I said, I think Garry will get back up to his feet. And if Garry keeps getting back up to his feet, if Jordan Williams is over wrestling, I do feel the fight's going to be won and lost on the feet. I think it's going to be won and lost on the feet regardless. I think Ian Garry is going to land the better strikes. I think he's going to look sharp. I think he's going to look technical. I think he's going to pack a load of volume in. And I think he's going to take at least 2 out of the 3 rounds away from Jordan Williams. I think there is a reason why Ian Garry is a big favourite in this fight. I'm picking Ian Garry to win this fight. And in the next fight, we've got John Villante versus Chris Barnett. This should be a fun fight in the heavyweight division. I do feel it's one of those low-level heavyweight fights. I don't mean any disrespect, but these two fighters are just a million miles away from the top of the division. But these fights are always fun. I love them. Chris Barnett's a ton of fun in regards to just watching him inside the cage. He's entertaining. Don't let his physique, shall we say, fool you. The guy is super athletic. His cardio does take a bit of a hit because of that, but like I said, he's a guy that'll throw flying knees, he'll throw head kicks, he'll be really fast in and out of range. But I just feel that Chris Barnett is entertaining to watch, but I just get the feeling John Villante is just going to do what he needs to do in this fight. I don't think he's not going to produce anything flashy like Huggy Bear Chris Barnett, but I think that John Villante is just going to be technical. He's probably going to drop around somewhere throughout this fight. I don't think he's going to 30-27 Chris Barnett, but I think John Villante is the better technical striker. He's the fighter that's more likely to be able to weather a storm as well and just push back if Chris Barnett overloads and gets himself tired trying to get John Villante out of there. That's a possibility as well. I think the experience of John Villante, the fact that he is now starting to become an official UFC heavyweight, he's getting used to that extra weight after coming up a weight division. I think that John Villante is just going to, like I say, he's just going to do what he needs to do. It's not going to be flashy. I don't think it's going to be anything super exciting in regards to throwing raw power and one punch knocking Chris Barnett out. But like I say, I just think the volume's going to be nice and steady throughout the fight. I think Chris Barnett's style of fighting, I think, is going to affect him a little bit because of his cardio. If he's throwing flashy moves and throwing head kicks and jumping knees, that sort of thing, I think John Villante is just going to be able to cruise the longer the fight goes on. It's not going to be an easy fight. It's going to be a razor close fight. It could be one of them fights that we see as a split decision and we've got no idea what the final judge and where he's scored that fight to. But I just think John Villante is going to win this fight with the experience, with the slow volume, and do just what he needs to do. I'm picking John Villante to win this fight. And in the next fight, we've got a short notice fight. We've got Dustin Jacoby stepping in for Alexa Camo fighting John Allan. John Allan and Camo supposed to have been going down here, but Camo's pulled out. Jacoby stepped in. I actually think that this is now a much tougher fight for John Allan, and the bookies agree as well. John Allan and Camo was pretty much a dead even fight on the betting line, a bit of a pick 'em either side. But now Dustin Jacoby's coming in well over -300, and I totally understand it. I think John Allan is going to have some moments maybe early on from a wrestling, grappling perspective, but Dustin Jacoby is just not an easy fighter to take down, and if he is taken down, he can get back up to his feet. He's just a really tough fighter to be able to control on the mat, and like I said, initially get to the mat anyway. But on the feet, this is an absolute whitewash in my opinion. I think Dustin Jacoby's kickboxing is just on a completely different planet to what John Allan's is. I think Allan's going to get pieced up on the feet. He's going to get hit with some hard shots. I'd be very surprised if Allan makes it out of round one. If he does make it out of round one, I like the cardio of Jacoby. Initially, when he was in his Contender Series fight, the cardio was a bit of a question mark, but he can go 3 rounds. I think John Allan as well, if the longer the fight goes on, even if Dustin Jacoby's cardio does take a hit, I think Allan's cardio will be even worse from the shots that he's been taking. And like I said, as long as Jacoby's landing hard shots, he's got every chance of knocking John Allan out. And that's where I see this fight playing out, being won and lost on the feet. I envisage John Allan just taking too much damage at some point and the referee either stopping it or John Allan getting knocked out. John Allan's best path to victory is to get on top of Jacoby and work, but I think that's going to be much easier said than done. I think it's going to be a difficult task. It's a difficult fight for Allan. I'm picking Dustin Jacoby to win this fight. And in the next fight, again a short notice fight, we've got Melsik Bagdasaryan versus Bruno Souza stepping in for TJ Laramie. I actually loved Bagdasaryan versus TJ Laramie. I think that fight was going to be absolutely fascinating from an entertainment perspective, a stylistic perspective. Bruno Souza stepping in on short notice, fair play to him, but I do think he's in a very difficult spot now. Bruno Souza's a Brazilian. Normally with Brazilians you expect strong Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he does have good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but he's a karate world champion and he's got that Wonder Boy stance, and it's really strange when I was watching tape and I saw that sort of karate stance coming from a Brazilian, but that's how he fights. The problem is he's really hittable. That lead leg is very kickable as well, and I think Melsik Bagdasaryan is a savage. I think he's a much better striker than Bruno Souza. I think Souza might have some moments in this fight, but Bagdasaryan's going to tag him up. He's going to land volume on him. Like I said, that lead leg from Souza is available to be kicked. I think Bagdasaryan will get that leg hurt, and then when Bagdasaryan steps into boxing range, I think he's going to land explosive combinations. That's where Souza is a little bit more reserved inside boxing range. I don't think he's quite as comfortable there. So for me, I'd be very surprised if this fight was won and lost on the mat. Sure, Souza might look to go there if he's getting lit up, but Bagdasaryan has shown that he's got decent wrestling defense. He can stand back up to his feet. He's not a slouch on the mat. He's not a one-trick pony. So I think with Bruno Souza, if he does take him down, I don't think he's going to be able to do much with that. I think Bagdasaryan's going to make this fight play out on the feet. I think it's going to be a won and lost on the feet. And I think that, unfortunately, he's just going to absolutely crush Bruno Souza. I think Souza is way too hittable. I think he can be put down. I think he can be knocked out. If he doesn't get knocked out by Bagdasaryan, I'd easily imagine Bagdasaryan to be able to take 2 rounds in this fight. I'm picking Melsik Bagdasaryan to win this fight. And in the final fight, and again, another fun fight, we've got the newcomer CJ Vergara versus Ode Osbourne. I love this fight. I think it's going to be fireworks for as long as it lasts. I don't think it's going to go to a decision unless both fighters are just super durable and are able to take each other's best shots. Then, of course, we will very likely see a decision. I think it's a fight that's going to be won and lost on the feet. Ode Osbourne has got wrestling, but he doesn't really use it offensively, more from a defensive perspective. CJ Vergara, again, does have wrestling, doesn't really use it too much, but if he tries to take Ode Osbourne down, again, I just don't think he's going to be that successful, and if he does, I think Ode Osbourne might even be able to submit him off his back. But I think this is a fight where the majority of the good work happens on the feet. CJ Vergara has got a real big problem in regards to being hittable, though, similar to what I said in regards to Bruno Souza in the last fight. He's just there to be hit. His head stays on the centre line. He's not very defensively aware. And somebody like Ode Osbourne from that southpaw stance, who fires everything straight down the middle like a sniper, he's going to be able to catch Vergara coming in. Ode Osbourne's limbs are going to be much longer. He's going to fight much longer. Vergara's got to work to get on the inside, and he's going to get tagged up from someone like Ode Osbourne from the outside. Ode Osbourne, even though he's going to be longer, I feel he's going to have a speed advantage in this fight. If Vergara does get inside and can get inside consistently without taking too many shots, I think that's where he's got his best chance of winning this fight. But I just think it's a really difficult fight for him stylistically and from a physicality perspective, just because of how long Ode Osbourne fights, how fast he is firing his punches. Ode Osbourne can fire moving backwards like a sniper as well. I think Vergara is going to have some moments, but ultimately I do think he's going to get put down at some point. I'm picking Ode Osbourne to win this fight. And that's all for this episode of On the Moneyline. I hope you all enjoyed it, guys. I appreciate all the likes to the video. If I've ever helped you win a bet, win some money with my analysis and with the breakdowns and the predictions, I'd appreciate a subscription to the MMA Play 365 channel as well. We're going to be doing this for you every single UFC event without fail. I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.